Hi, and welcome to another episode of Birthing Beyond 35. I'm your host, Haley Burns, and I'm really excited about today's guest. As soon as she announced she was pregnant last year, I literally messaged her and said, I cannot wait to have you on this podcast that I'm going to create. I first met Kristen Kenney a few years ago when I was living in Utah. She was the Utah Jazz TV reporter at the time, the sideline reporter. And I was the digital reporter. And so that's how we met. And over the years, we've kept in contact and, we've followed each other's, relationships falling apart, getting together with someone new and life going on, etc. And Kristen is the epitome of an example of women who going about their life, working on their career, perhaps get in their head that, nah, I don't think a family or a baby is in my future. And then, boom, it happens. So I really think you're all going to really enjoy listening to her story. It's got a dose of IVF. It's got a dose of feeling down and out, and it has a really cool ending. So I really hope you enjoy it and enjoy Kristen. Joining me now is Kristen Kenney. I'm very excited to talk to Kristen. I first met her back in Utah, Salt Lake City. We both worked for an NBA team, the Utah Jazz at the time. Since then, we've gone on to become mums. Kristen's story is really inspiring and really, really cool. I'm really excited for her to talk to us. So thank you, Kristen, for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm really excited that you're doing this because it's just such an important platform. And it's certainly relatable for me being an older mom and bringing this little guy in the world.
I got to say, don't you hate that term older mom? Because it's like I look at you and I'm like, this is not an older mother.
You what?
I look at you and I'm like, this isn't an older mom.
I know. We've talked about this before. It's just crazy because you feel like, especially in Utah, you feel like an older mom.
Yeah.
And that's why I love what you're doing, because you feel at this point, like when you're mid-30s, like if you don't have a baby, there's something wrong with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In society. And, that's kind of how I felt that itch at 35. And then by the time I hit 38, I was like really panicking, and then 39 panicking even more. And then finally, it just happened. So, but yeah, I think breaking down those societal pressures is huge. And I wouldn't do it any other way, honestly. Being 40 and having a baby, I feel like I had, it's perfect timing for me,
Yeah, and let's talk about your journey. So let's take it back a little bit. Like when you were growing up and starting out in your career, what did you envision that your life would possibly be, mid-30s, late 30s?
It's so funny when you look back years ago, you just have kind of no fear, right? And you don't really think about the things that you do as you get older, right?
Consequences.
What?
Like consequences of life decisions, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Consequences. Yeah, exactly. You're just kind of just wide-eyed and curious and excited and focused on your career and yourself. And all of a sudden, if your career, for me, I was always career driven and knew I wanted to get to a certain level in my career. And that was it. That was the focus, and wanted to see the world and travel and live life to the fullest. And then I think by the time I hit 35 is when I started to think, what do I want to do as far as settling down, quote unquote, settling down.
Yeah.
But before then, I just envisioned a life full of travel and adventure and a career in television and broadcasting that is how we met. So yeah, I think that was my focus, and I didn't really prioritize a husband or, a partner, and didn't think about it until I was 35 years old here in Utah.
Yeah. So like growing up, had you always wanted children? Was there a maternal side to you, or you didn't really feel that till you got a little bit older?
I'd never felt that maternal instinct that a lot of people have feel. And I think a lot of it too is I lived in so many cities, and I know we both spent time in Miami. Except we didn't meet each other then, but it's just crazy that we were in Miami and then Utah.
Shout out Coral Gables. Shout out the U.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think going to the University of Miami, I was more exposed to a different lifestyle. A lot of my friends were career first, my closest friends. So it just wasn't the norm for me was, was that. Whereas you compare that to Utah and it's such a quite contrast. Like people are having babies at a young age and starting their families, getting married, where, living in Miami and cities, then moving to LA, everyone was career hustle first. And then I moved here to the Jazz, to Utah for the Jazz. And that's when, you see other people around you. Everyone has kids, everyone has families. But yeah, I never really thought about it. It wasn't a priority for me. It was a priority for me to establish myself first, career first.
Yeah. And that's one thing I'd say about Salt Lake City and a lot of cities and states in this country is like, it's very, very heightened in Salt Lake about families and being married and having children. So then when you're sitting there, like I was, and like you were, like, like mid-30s, late 30s, and you're like the person that does not have that child or does not have a husband, you're a bit of an outcast. You're different.
Totally. Yes.
It's different. Whereas, like you say, if you're in New York City, Miami, or any of the big cities where people are focused on work, here in, Bay Area, it's you're normal. Not normal, but it's a very different world. Very different world.
It's totally, it's definitely different. And I guess you don't feel as much of, and an outsider, really. I mean, I find it kind of fun now living here in Utah, being an quote unquote older mom, or mom at 40. I actually find it fun. And I want to point it out to people because it's so not the norm here. So I enjoy that and kind of play into that a little bit, like, oh yeah, I'm an older mom, I'm what do they say, advanced maternal age.
We'll get into definitely all of that, like how your hospital stays and all that were. But I have to ask you, like, here you are, you say you're 35, 36, whatnot. What was your, I guess, journey to meeting a man to have a child? And were you ever worried that children might not happen for you?
Oh yeah, I was worried it was not going to happen for me. I think I've always struggled with relationships, and I've had relationships and was with someone for a period of time here in Utah, and that didn't work out. And then I actually was engaged once to somebody I met through the NBA, and that didn't work out. And I just kind of felt like I was 35 and just feeling this desire to have a partner. And I think, like most of us, like when you want a partner, right? And it just was harder for me because I didn't have a lot of time. And, a lot of that was the job. You're just constantly on the move, on the go. And so your priorities were different and you didn't have the time to invest in someone. But I wanted so badly to find someone who would work out. I just kept making poor choices. Wasn't spending the time and, focus on it really.
I mean, it's a lot to for anyone that doesn't know, Kristen was like a sideline reporter for the NBA team, the Utah Jazz, which means she is traveling all the time for probably 8 months of the year on a plane, boom, away.
Yeah.
Different time zones, exhausted. You finally get a moment to yourself. You just want to take a shower and wash your face, and you've got to research. You've got to watch other NBA games. Like, it's constant. Like, you don't get to just chill and be like, I'm going to go to a bar and see if there's a man there. Or, it's like, what was your tactic? Were you like dating apps? Or what, like, because Salt Lake is a small place to try and meet someone, Yeah,
I guess when I had moved here, I had a boyfriend from LA, and then that didn't work. That was a cheating situation. Yeah. And then I still felt young, Haley. I don't know, maybe if you felt, so I felt still really young. Like I had a lot more to do, and it just was finding the person that would, I think it was maybe timing. I don't know. I just know I wasn't giving it, like, you have to really focus, right? It's kind of like putting the focus into choosing you want a family and starting a family. It's
a mindset for sure.
Yeah. And you have to try to, you really like put in the time, and I just didn't have that, and maybe didn't want it and wasn't ready, and was still enjoying life on the road. And I didn't want the distraction. So what happened for me was, it was hard to date somebody without being distracted from my career or being threatened by, being, I was traveling with an NBA team.
Around athletes. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was really can be hard for a man. So it just was hard. And then when it wasn't NBA season, I was going back to see my family back east. So I wasn't really here investing my time into developing that relationship. So it was fleeting relationship after relationship, really. And then COVID hit, and COVID, you were just isolated, and it was impossible to date. I was single at the time.
I guess like, what was your mindset then? You're like, being a single woman in Salt Lake City during COVID.
Oh God, single in Salt Lake during COVID. I do not recommend it.
Yeah, dark time, I'm sure.
It was so challenging, but I guess it was challenging everywhere because at least we had places that were open. I don't know what you would do in any city if they shut down the city to meet people, but you're just trying to find people maybe I think I was definitely on dating apps for a period of time. That was really hard for me. I think primarily here in Utah, what was hard is the religious, the Mormon religion, LDS, and not being from that. It was really difficult. So I would try to go on dating apps like Raya, connecting with people in LA or cities, that I had a little more in common with. But it was tough, and I'd meet people through friends, I guess. But still, like, I just never
just have that connection.
And I had relationships. They just failed. And whether that says something about myself.
It's not a don't say that you failed at a relationship. It just wasn't your person.
It wasn't my person, but I brought things in. I wasn't my best self at that time either. COVID hit. I lost my job with the Jazz, and I was single at home alone at 37 and a half. So I wasn't the best version of myself, and had to really face that reality and go and, talk to somebody about that.
Yeah, no, I get that. And also, like, for maybe not a lot of women, but for a lot of people, like a job like that, and I've had that as well, like it becomes your identity. Like, it's like, this is who I am. Like, what do you do? I do this. And so then you got to start sitting there and really be like, okay, well, who am I? Because I'm not this job title. I'm not how much money I earn. Who am I as a person? You know, and liking that person, and that being enough to put out into the world.
100%. I know you and I talked about it briefly during that time, but yeah, that was a complete identity crisis. So mid-30s, embracing being single. And if the right person comes along, great. Then COVID hits, lose the job, identity crisis, depression, mental health stuff came to the forefront. And that really, really derailed me for about 2 years, I would say. And then finally got healthier, and then realized at 38, I got to do something. If I know I want a kid at this point, I do know I want a child or a chance to have a child. So what do? I don't have somebody who's, in my life, a partner for that. So you got to take control of the situation. And at that time I looked at IVF, and doing it on my own, becoming, I guess, a single mom through IVF, which is crazy. And it's crazy.
Had you thought about that prior, or it really was just you'd gotten to this point where had freezing your eggs or IVF ever been in your mind prior?
I wish that I had a more understanding of freezing your eggs at an earlier time period, but no, that didn't cross my mind until my mom and others said, look, you're not getting any younger. Why don't you preserve eggs or try to do something like get embryos, just so you give yourself the chance,
the opportunity,
and the opportunity to have a kid. So yeah, it wasn't like, I think I just it wasn't ever in my mind before. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks, I could say, like it crept up like a ton of bricks. So that
what's the IVF life like in Salt Lake City? Are there many clinics, or did you do it all there, or did you go to LA, or what did you do?
That's a great question. So actually there's quite a few clinics here. In the Salt Lake, Utah, as a whole has a high rate of infertility. I think the highest in the country. Don't quote me on that, but I know it has a high rate of infertility and treatments for infertility. So we have here a lot of fertility clinics. So it was a great place to start. And I did look, oddly enough, I looked at going to Brazil and out of
Oh,
country
wow. Okay.
because it's so much cheaper. So
I bet.
going through IVF treatments just to freeze your eggs alone
Mm.
is so expensive. I mean, a cycle.
Give me like a bit ball. I mean, I get every state would be different, every city is
Yeah.
different, every clinic's different. Like I assume like a San Francisco clinic is a bit more expensive than a Utah one. But like what is your, I don't know, explain, like give me some like ballpark figures of things.
Yeah. So just to get a cycle, which is one time of freezing eggs, one cycle, that cost me about $18,000.
Wow.
Well, that was actually including, I take that back. To the cycle of just freezing the eggs was $12,000.
Okay.
$12,000. But anyway, I've seen anywhere between 10 to 18.
That's a lot. It's a lot of
Yeah,
money.
that's a lot. And so based on that cycle of you see how many eggs you get from that cycle. I had 6 eggs and all of them died. So they never survived.
So how was your mental side going through that? You know, you've put yourself out there. I remember you shared it, you were sharing this with your followers on Instagram, like this is what I'm doing. And that's amazing that you did that because so many people keep it to themselves because it's either A, they find it embarrassing or, you know, they don't want to be judged, but you put it out there for to the world. But how did you go mentally when I was like, holy shit, the first round has just been a disaster?
It was really hard, but I know it was really tough physically too, because I had a reaction and was in the ER the night before the retrieval surgery.
Oh, wow.
Um,
What kind of reaction?
so I had this thing, they think it was either a torsion or I can't remember the name of it, but it's when you get too much of the trigger medicine, which is an injection that you shoot the night before your surgery.
Mm-hmm.
So I either reacted to that or had a partial torsion. We can't determine it, but you're throwing up, vomiting every 30 minutes
Oh,
and
wow.
so much pain, so much pain. And I had to call an ambulance and my mom was with me and it was wild. It's rare, but it happened to me and I was in the hospital till 5 a.m. and my retrieval, I believe, was 9 a.m. So we still did it. We went to the retrieval and that could have impacted the quality of the eggs. And that's why most of them died. So at that point, physically, I just was gutted and mentally gutted and
Yeah, not the
didn't ever
first,
do this
not
again.
the first experience you wanted to,
No,
you know, yeah, deal with.
I was like, this
Okay,
is
so
not what I want to do. I don't want to do it again. And I remember telling my mom, I'm done. Like, forget this. I just dropped 18 grand. The reason I spent more was because
wow.
I was going to embryos. So they freeze your eggs and then you create an embryo, which is with a sperm donation or
Mhm.
your partner. Being single, I used a donor sperm, which is like a dating app. It's crazy. That's a whole
Mhm.
other story.
No, well, you know, can you share with us for a couple minutes about that?
Yeah, I have videos of going through sperm donor sites. Like the guy it's a profile, right? Like literally like
Hmm.
a dating app.
Hmm.
And
Do you see their photos? You have to, right?
sometimes they do, sometimes they're private. So
Yeah,
they
and
have their
I assume it's verified. Like a guy can't be like, I'm 6'3" and I went to Yale. Like they have to
right.
tell the truth, right?
But I've heard horror stories. And how do they really verify all these people? And it's kind of freaky now. Looking back, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, this is crazy. But you're just swiping through
Gosh,
all
you're
these
just
different
hoping for
sites.
the best. Yeah.
And there's so many different sperm sites, and they're all set up different. And you have to pay a membership. Then, if you want to see their childhood pictures, you have to pay extra. It's a
Uh,
racket. It's a racket.
wow. And I bet they make the money because they're preying on what people want. They want babies, and just like
Yeah.
dating apps, people don't want to be lonely.
Yeah. And then you can look at all of their medical history. And
Hmm.
so I had to pay to get my genetic testing to make sure I was matching with someone who didn't have a chromosomal thing like me, whatever, all the genetic testing. So that's another 2 grand out the door. Then you've got, once you find the donor, it's 2,500 for the vial. Then to go to embryo, you have, I think that's another 5 grand. But the reason I went to embryo versus eggs is because of my age. And the best chance for me was to freeze embryos versus freeze your eggs, then unfreeze, then freeze them back. Go to put the sperm in. So I know it's kind of like detailed, but
You have this, this first experience and you're like, I'm done. What was your mum's reaction, your friends? Were they like, let's just take a minute? Did you do it again? What were your thoughts?
I was really down. I didn't want anything to do with it again. I felt jaded. I felt, how can I have such little eggs? My numbers all the testing you do in advance seemed to be on par and great.
So you tested your AMH levels before, etc.
Yeah.
And what did they kind of say? What did they say for you at the time?
They said it was good. They were projecting like 12 eggs. I think we learned through that first round is my egg quality was really bad.
Got
So
it.
at that point, you just feel like, well,
What can you do?
what can I do? I waited too long. I missed my window. What's my next option? I even contacted a couple adoption agencies at that point.
Wow.
Just thinking, because I know that's can be a 2-year process.
Mm-hmm. That's a big commitment though, that you're just like, yeah, okay, well, IVF didn't work. I'm never going to meet anyone, so I'm just going to adopt. Were you just very much like, just really wanted a kid straight away, or okay?
I wanted a kid. I wanted to set myself up to have a child over the next, I would say probably 4 years. What I was thinking. And knowing that the adoption can take a while, I just started that process.
What was that process like, even though you'd only kind of delved into it?
Yeah, I didn't go deep, but just reaching out to several agencies, reaching out to international agencies. And I think back when I was in my previous life, did a documentary in Africa, thought that, it'd be great to adopt from Tanzania. It's a country that I spend a lot of time in and love, but that was you can't do that unless you spend 3 consecutive years living there.
Well, yeah. Okay. Got to have a bit of a tie. Yeah. And I imagine there's a wait list, a really long wait list.
And my actual cousin actually has 2 adopted children. So talk to him about it.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. So it's just, that's a process, and it's hard to get, it's expensive. And then as a single parent, it's hard to get approval for that.
I get that. They want a child to go into a home with 2 parents in a sound environment. Yeah.
So at that point, I took some time off, went around and traveled a little bit, and then regrouped. And my mom's like, you need to do it. And so I went in and had a follow-up with the doctors and got more information on what they thought was the problem. And so we changed up. I actually went on DHEA. Are you familiar with that?
Mm-mm.
It's an egg quality supplement.
Okay.
So they put me on that. And
I know DHA. I know
DHA.
Like fish oil. Yeah.
Yeah. DHEA is like an egg quality supplement they put me on. So I did that for about 3 to 4 months. So I got really healthy, focused, and clean diet, and changed up everything to see if that would make a difference.
No drinking.
Limited drinking.
I like your honesty. Just like, no.
Just tequila.
Clean tequila with a bit of lime. Yeah.
Yeah. I just cleaned up everything and went on supplements that they recommended and said, all right, let's give it a go. If it doesn't work this time, then we know I've got to adopt. And it worked. But this is not, I didn't have the baby through IVF.
No, we're going to get to that. Yeah. So what does it worked mean?
So I was successful. I think they had 12 eggs and then 4.
12 is amazing. Were you like, wow?
Yeah, I cried and was happy and had embryos out of it. And I don't know if they're viable. They're sitting on ice.
It's nice you have that option.
But
you'd obviously get them tested if you wanted to use them, that do the genetic testing, correct? Yeah.
Yeah. And I was thinking about donating them too.
Nice. Yeah, that'd be amazing too.
Yeah. Because after that process, that was wrapped up December of 2022.
Okay.
And went and just was like, all right, I'm going to go. No pressure. If I meet someone, great. If I don't, great. And at least I have 4 embryos, and kind of felt like the pressure's off.
Okay. So you sat there December 2022. You've got these embryos.
Yep.
At that stage, are you thinking, okay, we're going to do a transplant here, or were you just like, what was your mindset?
I was giving myself time because, which I'm glad I did, honestly, Haley, because think I don't know how you would do it. Like I know single moms, or I know single moms, but I don't know how I would do it. So I'm glad that I took a break and just gave myself time to sit on it and know that I have embryos. If I want to transfer them, I can, but I'm probably going to need a little more time for that.
What would that transfer cost be?
Shoot, that's probably another 20 grand. I don't know, 15,
Okay.
18.
Curious, because I assume that would be, yeah.
I would imagine that's at least $10,000 because you have to do the progesterone implant, all the monitoring for that. And it doesn't usually happen on the first try. I mean, it can, but making that decision is big. You got to be ready. And at that time, still trying to figure out job, career, new job. I'm really glad I didn't do it. Honestly, I'm really glad I didn't do it. Gave myself just some time because then I met my partner, which is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't even talked to you about this. I've been meaning to catch up. Things have been happening, but yes, tell us what happened and how did you meet this man who is now the father of the baby that you're holding right now?
It's wild. Yeah, it's wild. I surrendered and just said, I think the pressure was off knowing that I had 4 embryos. So I'm going to be clear on that I knew that was always a backup option. And I just started to enjoy life and not put pressure on meeting someone. If it happens, it happens. And I was at a conference in Vegas and met my partner, John, who just miraculously came into my life. Like, it's just wild. We were both.
You meant to leave the men in Vegas, though. That's the whole thing. You meant to leave them there, not have babies with them.
I meant to leave the men in Vegas. I met him in Vegas, of all places, a bar, in the lobby bar, but he was at the same conference.
Nice.
Both conference attendees. And my colleague at the time said, "You need to get down here. There's a guy here from Salt Lake City." And I'm like, "What?
Oh, wow.
No way." And I go down and meet him, and we just were friends. And then we both, he's older, he's in his 50s, early 50s. And me being 40 or turning 40, I was turning 40. We both just started hanging out and talked about wanting kids, and he's never had kids and I never had kids. And we were on the same page and we're like, okay, let's see. And boom.
Okay, so you've gone from the Vegas bar to boom, but so you started dating, like, when did you start, let's quickly summarize. I know your baby's probably going to lose it in the next 20 minutes or something, but so, okay, you meet him at the bar, you go back to Salt Lake City, you start kind of dating, start seeing each other, correct?
Yeah, we start seeing each other, but not like we're just friends at first.
Okay, you're friends, and then, but at some point, you've made love. You've taken it to the next level.
And then that first time, we got pregnant.
The very first time.
This is crazy. Yes. It sounds insane. It sounds super impulsive.
It doesn't sound insane. It sounds like, it's amazing. It's like the universe. And so were you both kind of like do unsafe sex, we'll just see what happens? Or?
Yes. I think we were both like, hey, we're at this point old.
Stop. Yeah.
But hey, let's just see what happens.
That's amazing. And so, okay, your period's due. Like, what happened?
I just am in so much shock because I remember too, we also said, I told him that my chances are really low because that's what the doctor said because of my egg quality. So we just weren't even thinking anything would happen. And then I know I skipped my period, and that was a shock.
Were you looking for your period, or were you just oh, actually, because you wouldn't have thought that you'd get pregnant straight away. Were you just oh, actually, it's been 3 days?
No, I never thought, but it had been about a few weeks.
Okay.
And then realized, okay, I feel a little hungry and I'm not satisfied.
Is this the first time you've been pregnant?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I felt kind of bloated. And my girlfriend said, you need to go get a pregnancy test. So I got a pregnancy test, and there it was. And I was pure shock. Honestly, I almost fainted. Just ready. I'm not ready. How is this possible?
And you just started a new job, right? TV job, correct?
You just finally gotten a new job. And I was not ready. I was like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? And I never thought I could get pregnant. And, it's one thing, you want a kid and you do the things to set up yourself up for that opportunity. If you can have a kid, but it just that soon after just meeting and
Yeah. I get it. We've all got a mental timeline in our head, like I want to be this and I want to have this much money in the account and blah, blah, blah. We have all these things that no, even if you're ready, you're never ready.
Like 2 years, 4 years, like I was willing to do that, wait that long, but yeah, no, it happened. It happened. And I think that going through the egg freezing and then all of that with the injections and hormones, I think that prepared my body to really get pregnant.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, your uterus and everything was completely healthy.
Yeah, I think it really did. And with the DHEA, like enhancing my egg quality.
Okay, well, so what was your pregnancy like? Let's get through that.
Pregnancy, honestly, the first trimester, just nausea, like typical. And then second trimester, a ton of energy. It was great. John would say the opposite because I had some back pain, but had probably complained a lot. But no, I look back and it wasn't that bad. Third was definitely more challenging, I think, the third trimester.
How was your mental, what kind of birth did you envision? Because we all sit there and you're not meant to have a plan or anything, but you have a kind of vision of what you'd like. What did you like? What did you want for your birth and what ended up happening?
I wasn't particular about any birth plan, actually. I just wanted him to be healthy, and wanted the best chance for, a healthy delivery. And so I actually went to a doctor recommended from a previous, boss who she had her baby, I believe at 39 and 40. So, older by Utah standards, medical standards, I guess. But, so she recommended this doctor, the OB. And so we went to him and I just let him guide us and really just relied on him. And, that was it. So I didn't really have a particular birth plan. We kind of were this just was such a shock to us that we're just catching up. Like, okay, how do we do all this? Oh, okay. We weren't really the couple to look into a lot of books and read a lot of stuff. We kind of just let it come as it did and embrace whatever came our way. But we were navigating a lot of changes. It was a new job for me, pregnancy.
So you're also getting to know this guy.
Yeah. Right.
You're dating him. It's been 3 months.
Exactly. So it was a lot of a lot of new stuff. And so for us, it was just, how can we have this baby the healthiest way and whatever the doctor recommends. So we were going to always try to do vaginal delivery. And then I contemplating just going straight to C-section, actually. Yeah, I think being at 40 at that point.
Yeah. Why is that? Because you got told you had a risk, or?
There is a slight percentage increase in risk, but the numbers didn't really show a substantial risk. It wasn't like I thought I was going to have preeclampsia because of endometriosis. I have endometriosis, but that didn't really come into play. I took daily aspirin and aspirin, yes, whatever, the baby aspirin, right? And so it never really came into play. I was pretty healthy throughout my pregnancy. So we had planned to induce at 39 weeks. And the reason being is the placenta is what we were told can deteriorate beyond that when you're 40 plus.
That's what they say. That's what they say.
Yes. Yeah. So that's what they say. There's mixed reviews on that. My other girl chose not to. We're talking about you. We're talking about you.
Sorry, what's his name again?
Mikali is Michael in Greek. His dad's Greek.
Love it.
Yeah, we're talking about you.
Okay, so they recommended you get an induction at 39 weeks. So that's what you went and did?
We did it. I wasn't dilated. And honestly, I would never do that route again. Ever. Wouldn't do it again.
I hear you. I went through the exact same route.
Was it the same?
Only they said we want to induce you at 39. I said no. And I said I want to wait. And then it got to the point where I was now like pushing the end of 40 weeks, going on 41 weeks. And I was like, God damn it. Like, I feel pressure that I should really go, okay, well, let's induce. And long story short, I'll talk about mine at some point. But long story short, baby was not having it, didn't dilate, had to get a C-section. Pretty much where I think your story's going to go. So
That's
tell me about
exactly
that.
the same thing. Tried everything. They stuck a balloon thing up there
Oh, sounds horrible.
and everything to get it dilated, to get
When the
dilated.
baby's not ready, it's not ready. Like
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
frustrating thing, and we get caught up in the, okay, well, I'm high risk. And it's your first baby and you're older, so you start researching stillbirth rates and things like this, and you get all in your head and you're like, well, shit, I better do an induction then. And
Hmm.
it's just like, oh, I think if, you just waited, or yeah, like you say, if you just did a C-section and just get it over with rather than
Yeah.
spending all this unnecessary time and energy just to get the same result.
That's the thing. And I guess the biggest thing though is you never know because then my best girlfriend, who was 2 weeks behind me, um, and I believe she's 38 now. I can't, 37, 38, but she chose not to induce and then still resulted in a C-section. So she's, she went in and once she was in labor and still, 40 weeks at 40 weeks. And so you just don't
You
know.
just don't know.
You don't
Yeah, and
know.
you don't know. Like my baby, for example, she was kind of sitting diagonally. She was just kind of like stuck. Like,
Mhm.
and it's kind of annoying because I researched it afterwards, and I'm like, well, if they just did a proper ultrasound, they would have seen her position, and they would have gone, okay, well, the fact is like this. She was called transverse, in this position, the baby generally will always have to be a C-section. And it's like if we just knew this, and the first day I went in there, we could have
Yeah.
done the C-section. Like that. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah,
I
it's
get it.
silly.
It's just frustrating. I wish I knew about that prior. Um,
Right. But you
yeah.
don't
So
unless
what's
you go through
so
it. I mean, how are you
yeah. So,
supposed to know everything?
yeah. So sorry, I interrupted you, but yeah. So tell me. So you're at this
No,
point
no.
where you're like, oh, how many hours had you been trying before you're like, I think,
I think
did you make the call for a C-section or did your OB?
it was about pushing 30 hours
Mm-hmm.
or over 20 for certainly over 24. And
Yeah.
then I started getting really sick
Okay.
from the epidural. Papa,
Mm.
hey, hey, let's change your position here. I started the epidural was actually I believe too high, and so I was having numbness in my chest, in my throat area, and so I didn't like that, and it was almost like I was going to faint. And so I called in the anesthesiologist. And I really, the epidural wasn't that strong. I wasn't pushing the button. I felt almost like you were going to pass
Yeah. So
out.
many drugs going through you.
So many, yeah. And at that point, I called in the OB and I said, I don't think I can do this anymore. Um, and he came in, he's like, look, you got at least 8 hours if you want to try to do this vaginally. And I don't know if you have the energy to
Yeah.
sustain that. And with the epidural doing what it's doing, he's like, I would recommend C-section because
Mm-hmm.
he really was trying to help me do have
Yeah.
vaginal delivery. But at that point, it was clear that I needed to get a C-section.
Yeah.
That was, I don't know if you felt this, but the shaking, did your body shake?
Yeah. I
Scary.
was like convulsing.
Yes. Why don't they
Yeah.
tell you that?
I know. They just like, I was shaking so much, and that they kept telling me, they're like, put your tongue on the roof of your mouth. I don't know if they told you that, but they're like, put your tongue at the roof of your mouth and it'll stop you shaking. And it did. I don't know why, but my arms just were like, it was like you're cold. I can't explain it.
Yes.
It's like you just have literally nothing left. You are just so completely wrecked. You have no energy. And suddenly they're pumping you with this new thing to make you numb. And yeah, I was like literally just convulsing on the table while they're ripping, cutting me open.
Wait, so how long were you in labor?
Like 30, I mean, I'd say a labor quote marks,
Yeah.
but really contractions that weren't making me dilate for like 36 hours. And then I basically just said, this is
Yep.
bullshit. I'm
Okay.
sick of you
Yep.
guys
That's
trying to
about
make me do
like,
this. Let's just do a C-section.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was frustrated too. And especially when I started feeling like I was going to pass out, and faint. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. It's really harder than what I ever envisioned. Nothing could have prepared me for that. I went in the hospital excited and got room service and food. And this is great.
Hmm.
Watching
And then had you ever had a major surgery before?
not like that.
Yeah.
And then
It was,
it got like to the point where, because the shaking was really scary, but also the epidural didn't fully work on one side of my body.
oh no, I did say that. Oh
That
wow.
was one of my biggest fears
Scary.
going into it. But the left side had a hole, I guess, and it wasn't really working. And so I could feel at one point when they sliced and pulled.
Oh, wow. But was it pain or you just felt it?
It was pretty stingy.
Oh, wow. Oh,
And
that's scary. You hear about those.
it was pretty painful. It was, and so they couldn't do anything, but they did say that they would put me, because they knew that I was having a little bit of a feeling sensation on the left side prior to, and they were going to put me under if that happened, but they had to cut the umbilical cord before to do that. So they did. They pulled him out, and John said that right when they pulled him out, it was crazy, like snip, and they injected me. I went under, so I fully went under.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yep.
So what was your recovery time like? How long were you out for?
I don't even know.
Yeah.
I think it was a good chunk of time because
So you woke up back in your room?
so I woke up still in the surgery room,
Okay.
and they had put him next to my head. I remember all of that, but I was quite out of it. And, but it was fine. I mean, it was, at that point, it's a beautiful moment. Your baby's okay. He's looking at me. He's alert.
And you're just so euphoric. You're just like, you haven't slept for 3 days, but you're just
Yeah.
like, whatever,
Yeah.
you're in the zone.
And I remember they did put him up against the tarp when they pulled him out at some point. I don't know if that's when after they cut, I don't know. I can't remember. It's all a blur. And we went back to the room. Everything was good. And the system went down in the hospital, computer system. And so they didn't have the correct dosage for the pain medicine. They had it every 2
They
hours.
just guessed.
It said every 2 hours instead of every 15 minutes. So I was without pain
Oh,
medicine
wow. Oh my
for
God.
45 minutes. That was the worst experience of my life.
Wow. Wow, you really went through it.
It's wild.
Wow.
So John's like tapping my chest to keep me awake from
Was
passing.
that because of a storm or something? Like, why did the power go out, or why did that happen?
They had some system failure. They've been having issues with the new system, but the anesthesiologist comes in and is like, hello, you're supposed to give her the meds every 15 minutes, 2 hours. So that was really when I got upset and frustrated. That was really bad.
Yeah. And then obviously you had to stay in for a few days recovering.
I was in there for 5 days and it was not fun.
Before I let you go, I'd love you to talk quickly about your breastfeeding journey and everything you've kind of gone through in the last 10 weeks.
Yeah, he's been he came into the world a little bit. It was a crazy experience for him because he had a cellulitis on his eye. So he had like an eye infection that they were concerned.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes. Quickly.
Led to all this. Okay. So, he basically, it was a scary eye infection above his eye, and they were concerned it would get to his brain. So they transported him to primary children's. And so he was on antibiotics the first 2 weeks of his life, which.
Were you just like completely like, oh my God, like you've been through this harrowing C-section, and then it's like my baby's now in the NICU.
It was awful, awful. So breastfeeding was not an available option at that time, and you're trying to pump it home and go see him in the hospital and NICU, and it just was awful. And you don't know what you're doing. It's just crazy. Fortunately, everything was okay, and we're really, really, really fortunate that nothing spread and beyond his eyelid. So
yeah, isn't it amazing that you can sit here now and look back at that? Because I know when you were in it, would have been absolutely horrible.
It was really bad. Yeah. And looking back, I don't even know how we got through it. It was crazy. I just was so glad the day that we brought him home, and it was the best feeling ever to bring him home. But he being on antibiotics for 2 weeks upset his gut and created colic. So he's had significant colic issues and dealing with that. But we learned through that he has a milk protein allergy. So he is allergic to my boobs.
Yeah.
He's allergic to my breast milk. And so we cannot breastfeed anymore. And that's okay.
And that would have been just another because, we as mothers, you want to give them the antibodies, and I had the same thing. I kind of gave up after 4 months. I just wasn't producing enough milk. And it's just like, and then you look at other mothers who just make so much milk and life is just so easy, and they can just put their baby on their boob anytime, very just stress-free living. And then there I was having to pump all the time and all that kind of stuff. What was that like for you, having to deal with like just letting that go?
It's so hard, as you know, it is really hard. I don't think you realize how hard it is until you actually are going through it. 'Cause I was willing to take whatever came my way, kind of like I said when I found out I was pregnant, like, let's just see what happens. So if I breastfeed, I breastfeed. If I don't, I don't. But when you are breastfeeding, and I did do it for 4 weeks, it was amazing. And it was such a bonding experience. And so to take that away, especially worried about his immunities and the antibodies and all of that, that it's really been hard. I still want to, and I'm like, oh, should I still pump and try? In 3 months, maybe he can have it. Just it's hard. It's not realistic. It's too difficult. And
Yeah. But like I say to you, like in a year's time, it won't matter. You won't even be thinking about it. When he's 2, when he's 3, it's just going to be, you're going to be onto the next thing where him splitting his head open on the footpath and all of those
oh
kind of things
no.
that we get to look forward to.
No.
I'm dealing with all of that now. My daughter's 22 months. So yeah,
When they're mobile,
it's happening
they're
now.
mobile and they're just it's chaos.
Yeah. It's, yeah, it's just one thing after the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess, yeah, last question. So you've got these embryos. Do you think you're a one and done, or are you interested in giving your little boy a sibling? How are you feeling?
I think we've talked about this because he's in his 52 and it's a new relationship and a lot of complications with this one. I think we're happy with being one and done right now. I know people say that,
Yeah, just be together right now.
but I want to be together. I want to enjoy our little unit. And
Hmm.
I think that's perfect for us. We're very grateful and blessed to have a baby. I didn't think it would really happen, let alone with somebody that that's a great father. And so I'm just enjoying that. I think that's where we're at. And if with the embryos, I'm going to look into donating them.
That would be amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't donate them too soon. Like make sure you're completely done,
Yeah.
because life changes, man. It can change. You never know.
Yeah. And that's the thing. You look at that, like, amen to that. Life changes so fast. And I always tried to control it. And when I just let go, it kind of happened. So
Yeah, that's true. That's true. For myself, and I know a lot of people, just when you stop looking for it, it just will come at you when you're not ready. And when you're really happy with yourself.
100%. Yep. Yep. 100%. That's the greatest lesson. I have to keep reminding myself that.
I guess last thing I'll say to you, just to sign off, like what would you say to, young Kristen or young women out there who are, because it is young, but who are in, 35, 38, 39 and thinking like, oh, I don't know if this will happen for me. Like what advice or words of wisdom can you tell them?
I think it's hard to fight the pressure. So do what you can to really enjoy living your life that you're in that moment. Enjoy your career, enjoy the freedom, the flexibility. But if you really want a kid, I think taking those steps, like freezing your eggs just to take that pressure off, is a great idea. I wish I had done that when I was younger, mid-30s, 35. That would have been amazing to have done that. But enjoy the moment you're in and know that things are just going to happen if you kind of let go, and not try to control every single second of your life, which is easier said than done. I
Yeah,
still struggle with that.
of
But once I
course.
let go, good things happened.
Awesome. Kristen, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Haley. You're amazing. Thank you.